right, we are back. Just me and downtown today. We lost the other two, so there'll be a lot less F-bombs thrown and a lot less hair on the podcast today. So we're going to be talking about the last night's game against the New Jersey Devils and give a little bit of a pregame to tonight's game against the New Jersey Devils. I unfortunately did not get to watch much of the game because I was at work, but Stephen Brown did, and he's going to walk you through how the Leafs looked last night, some of the problem areas, and surprisingly, how I know you tweeted about it. I think you tweeted about it, how fast the Devils looked.
Yeah, I mean, the first 10 minutes of the game were not fun if you were a Leafs fan. And I mean, I follow a couple of New Jersey Devils writers, and they've been talking about the Devils being or having very good underlying numbers for the last year and a half or so, but just not necessarily getting those results or being able to play a full 60 minutes. And they are a younger team, right? So that's no real surprise, but it was impressive the way that they were just absolutely hemming the Leafs in and just disrupting every single breakout that they had. There was one of the goals, I believe, where it was one Leaf player breaking out of the zone, and he absolutely just got his pocket picked and the puck went back the other way, and it was like a 2-on-1 rush. And not to single out anyone from those first 10 minutes because the entire team was garbage, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later on when we're highlighting our top performers and guys that haven't necessarily played that well, but Justin Hall and Timothy Liljegren had a real
Leafs. You've got to give them that opportunity because we don't very often give them that opportunity, i.e. Travis Dermott was off and on for forever. We've had a bunch of guys throughout the last little bit that we just didn't, especially under Babcock. And I agree, Liljegren, especially since he got back from COVID, has looked uncomfortable. He hasn't looked like an NHL defenseman. So you got to wonder if maybe an AHL stint, get his confidence back, and then to bring him up when Muzzin comes back, or we're going to get to trade targets after the post game. But that's something that we can kind of segue into because, yeah, right now you want to let him make those mistakes. But if it's a confidence thing, you got to let him get some confidence through easier competition in the AHL, in my opinion. Thoughts?
Yeah, especially even just playing more minutes in more meaningful situations and stuff like that. That could do a lot for your confidence and just coming back with a mindset of, okay, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. Right? I have done and I will do, and then just going back into the lineup and being able to just do it.
Yeah,
basically. But moving on from Timothy Liljegren, I think we've kind of set our piece on that, right? Mm-hmm. In mentioning Jack Campbell a little bit earlier on, he was pulled from this game. It's been pretty tough for him since the start of the new year, coming on a COVID protocol as well, because he was one of the guys who had it.
Yeah.
Not making any excuses for anyone. Obviously, we don't know Jack. We don't know the situation. We don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis. We know how hard he is on himself and how easy that is to maybe compound on a guy. But after he was pulled, the shots were 23-15 Leafs at 5-on-5, and the scoring chances were 16-8 after the first period onwards. So, I mean, the Leafs in front of Peter Mrazek played a lot better. And that's not to say that the team is quitting on Jack or anything like that, or that the team plays better in front of Peter Mrazek. No, it's just that the team did kind of wake up in front of him. It was a combination of Jack not necessarily playing well and the team in front of him not making his job any harder. And you saw the two goals that he allowed where maybe he's overcommitting on one and then he kind of just stays in the middle of the net on the other and doesn't really push off to one side, doesn't take the pass, doesn't take the shot. Mm-hmm. In that scenario, it kind of just looks like he's uncomfortable and unsure. Yeah. Right. And that's not anyone's fault. We're not bagging on him or anything like that. I'm certainly not. And you aren't either. Mm-hmm. But it's a thing where we need Jack Campbell to play better. So whatever it is that gets that back on track, if it's giving him a couple of days off, if it's maybe giving him a softer matchup or so to just get his confidence back and rolling, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I mentioned, someone did mention that it's like Lobster Fest at Red Lobster starting now. So maybe the guys can take him out for a lobster dinner because nice. They're back in Ontario.
Nice. Two things to that. My first point is what you were saying, it's not like they're playing bad, they've given up on Campbell. Obviously not. The other way you could look at it is they realized that like, oh no, we're letting Jack down by playing so god awful defense, like that he got pulled, we better get our shit together, you know, and that's the wake up call need, because they love Jack so much, because they respect Jack so much. That could be another way that we choose to look at it. Perpetual optimist here. The other
well,
thing,
Sheldon also said as much in his post game interview, saying that, hey, Jack is not playing up to the standards that he set for himself, but the guys in front of him need to help him as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw a tweet that was pretty encompassing of Jack Campbell in the last month, just saying it's not that Jack is letting up bad goals, he's just not giving us the save like he was. Right? He's not.
You know what? You say that, and I do have the numbers in front of me, and yeah. It's right. It's right. You know, he's making the saves that maybe you would expect him to. Maybe not as many as he was before, but it's not anything overly detrimental. But he's not giving you those flashy saves on those higher danger opportunities. And we can get into those numbers a little bit later on. But that's where he's fallen off the most. He's not making those spectacular saves right now.
And that was the other point. I don't know if it was that tweet or someone else was saying, like, it's pretty similar to Frederik Andersen last year.
I would caution mentioning the two in the same sentence, just because what went on with Frederik Andersen the last 2.5 years that he was here, and then this season with the Hurricanes is absolutely infuriating from a Leafs fan perspective. And I
especially that he played October so well.
Yeah, you know? Especially that he played.
Come on, man!
What the hell, Fred?
He had like a 920 save percentage through his first 2 or 3 years with the Leafs, and still his October was sub 900. And then he goes to Carolina, even though he's having 1 year he was considered for the Vezina, and he has amazing Octobers. Like, come on, man. But yeah, it's kind of like Jose Bautista from the Pirates to the Jays, but that's an older reference there. Now, what's funny is we won last night. And I think we've talked for about 15 minutes so far. Mm-hmm. We haven't said one positive thing about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's get into the fact that we won last night, and let's get into some of the positive things that you saw on the ice.
Right. Like we got to pick one, right? Are we mad at them for blowing leads and still winning games? Or are we mad at them for trailing games and then needing to come back and win? Right. I think the answer is that you should just look at the end result and understand that it's a game in January and that there still are a lot of games to go and a lot of time left to sort through things. And as long as they have things sorted by the end of the regular season, I really don't care where they finish in the standings. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, you want them to finish as high as possible. And I'm not saying that I don't want them to finish as high as possible, but either way you look at it, whether it's finishing first, second, third in the Atlantic Division, or even one of those wildcard spots, you're going to face an equally good team. Yeah. And I say equally good team because the Leafs are good too, right? They are. And their ability to score whenever they want really has kept them in the last 2 games, and it allows them to win. It allows them to play like 5 minutes in the third period and still sneak out a win, or just the third period and sneak out a win, which is sort of kind of what happened last night against the Devils. The shots and the scoring opportunities were heavily in favor of the Maple Leafs after that goalie change and from the second period onwards, but specifically in that third period, they absolutely dominated. Like, Peter Mrazek did come in and he did only just allow 1 goal in like 50 minutes last night. He did allow them to be able to come back in the game after maybe, in that Detroit game, maybe his defense didn't help him out, but he definitely wasn't helping them out either. Yeah. And it's been a real rocky start for Peter Mrazek. But the game against the Islanders, the game last night against the Devils, he's confirmed starting tonight against the Devils again. He has a real opportunity to turn his season around and to get a lot more confidence back on his side. And I don't know if you want to dive into the rumors now from Saturday night, but
I just wanted to first say, and then we'll get into a little bit of rumors, just like this is exactly why we got Peter Mrazek.
Yeah.
And granted, I know some of the rumors are that, like, you know, he's being called upon and stuff like that. And I think you or other people were saying like Yaroslav Halak, completely agree. That could be a cool, like, because they're pretty similar in stats throughout their career. One comes a lot cheaper. But this is the reason why you have a tandem goaltender. And this would be Joseph Wall showed that he may be an NHL goaltender, but Peter Mrazek is an NHL goaltender, and he's a 1A starter, even if he's having some poor games. When Jack Campbell isn't being Jack Campbell, this is why we need a guy like Peter Mrazek, and why I think the rumors were saying that Dubas was going to, if it's going to be a deal, it's going to be the off season. But I want you to get into the rumors because you know a little bit more about that.
Right. And just to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, it is the reason why you get Peter Mrazek. This is the reason why you have a tandem goaltending, because if Jack gets hurt, Peter Mrazek is there to do his job, right? And he's been doing his job over the last week or so, especially in 2 out of 3 of those games. Jack hasn't gotten hurt so far, but he's in a bit of a slump, and he's allowed to do that, right? He's not going to be a 940 goalie the entire season, still at a 926.
Crazy.
Right. So Sky isn't falling. The Leafs are still on pace for their best season in franchise history. The sky is not falling, even though we spent the first 15 minutes or so kind of talking about some negative things. There are still
Leafs fans.
Things. Right. We just want to see them do even better than what they're doing right now. And that's what
because we know they
players have talked about, because we know that they can.
Yeah.
But to go into those Mrazek rumors from Saturday night, Jeff Merrick mentioned that any conversations that Kyle Dubas has in regards to his goaltending tandem will take place in the summer. But he also noted that if the Maple Leafs were interested in possibly moving on from Peter Mrazek right now or in the summer, that there are multiple teams who would be willing to just take him, right? It's not a scenario where the Leafs would be paying the other team to take him. I don't know how much the Leafs would be getting back in a hypothetical deal,
right,
but they would not be on the hook for any of that contract. And that's a testament to the goalie market right now. That's a testament to Peter Mrazek and his last couple of seasons. And it's a testament to, I guess, Kyle Dubas's negotiating skills, right? Because you're able to prop up an asset that a lot of people in Toronto are saying that's absolutely on fire right now. I don't like, I said in my video, and I need to stop doing videos the night of games, because you feel really emotional in that sense. And I get away from my like my and or scenarios where, you know, like, yeah, they could do this or they could do that sort of thing. And I'm just like, no, they need to do this because I feel emotional right now and I'm done with it. You know, like, you're just frustrated in that moment. And I had said that if Kyle Dubas can find a taker for Peter Mrazek, he needs to do it now, just because but at the same time, I'm not in favor of doing that if you can't get another guy to also come in. And that's why we mentioned Yaroslav Halak. It's not a scenario where I'm comfortable having Joseph Wool and Michael Hutchison be the second and third guy behind Jack Campbell. If you can't get another goalie, then you keep Peter Mrazek and you allow him to find his way, get into more games, get some more reps, and hopefully it goes well. But at the same time, the reason why you would think about possibly dealing him right now and just being done with it is because $3.8 million against your salary cap for another 2 years after this one is a pretty hefty commitment. And if you can find another goalie like Yaroslav Halak, who's having a good season right now and his contract expires at the end of this season, I would much rather trade away a more riskier situation and inherit a shorter term option that's performing well right now. Names and personal things aside.
It's tough because you'd have to have the other deal already kind of set in place before you traded Peter Mrazek, unless it was like a 1-for-1 kind of thing. But then because he has term connected to his deal, and goalies right now, especially with some of the injuries, are a dime a dozen in the NHL. Like the New Jersey Devils are starting John Gillies and Akira Smeed. So Buffalo's even worse, you know, like Arizona, just like, who are those guys, even though absolutely destroyed the Leafs. But like, you'd have to have like a Halak deal already kind of set in stone before you made it, because other teams are going to be looking for those guys that they can ride into the playoffs with, which is why personally, I think you hold on to Mrazek. It also, I'm one of those guys where you see like the Leafs TikTok and you see little interviews and stuff and guys like razzing each other and stuff. And I'm a big, I don't know if it's right or wrong. When I see that guys really like someone and they get along with someone, it makes me want to keep them. So like, even Nick Ritchie is a bit of an example. The guys in the dressing room seem to really like Nick Ritchie. You know, like on the bench when he scored, everyone was like really like dapping him up. And then Mrazek, he's like constantly chirping with the guys. He's saying that like he's chirping Michael Bunting for not being able to score on him in practice. Those things, I don't know how replaceable they are in trades, and I don't know how much effect they have on the team playing overall. And like, if you really like Peter Mrazek in net, how much better, even if it's a 1% increase in the way that you play, is that worth something?
And it, you know what, that really does just come down to a conversation of, you know, personal feelings and business, right? It is what it is. Like anything disparaging that we've ever said towards Nick Ritchie is not personal. I'm sure he's a very pleasant, nice individual, and I've met some people in media that have said some things where I'm kind of scratching my head, right? Sometimes I say those things as well, probably on this podcast right now in the last 20 minutes or so. But to personally attack someone is kind of odd for their sports opinion or the way that they've played during a game, especially, you know, like it's just not personal. And I'm not saying that Kyle Dubas would be like, okay, if the Leafs, let's just say hypothetically, were to trade away Peter Mrazek, I said in my video that this is not the equivalent of the Vegas Golden Knights just absolutely just stabbing Marc-Andre Fleury right through the chest with a giant claymore. You know, it's not, it wouldn't be like not loyal or like backstabbing or anything like that. It would just be business, because we've only known Peter Mrazek for 7 games, right? It's not like he carried us through multiple playoff rounds and is a model and is an absolute just model citizen like Marc-Andre Fleury. That's not a slight on Mrazek. It's just Marc-Andre Fleury is just a ball of sunshine. Reality, you know?
Yeah, he's the Jack Campbell of Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I would like Kyle Dubas to do whatever is best for the team, but whatever he thinks is best for the team, because he's the GM and we're doing a podcast, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, you could also look at it in the sense of like, if he was to be traded, it would likely be a team that would give him more starts than the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? Very, very likely Mrazek would go to a team where he'd be the starter. You know, exactly. He wouldn't need to be in a tandem. So in the end, I completely agree with you. You do need to take the personnel of it. Just being a fan, I think it's a little bit different when you look at a guy who seems so well liked, and then you also have to take into account like how the effect that it has within the dressing room. But that brings us to some of the defenseman rumors we can now get into. So start off with a little bit of what you talked about in your last video, and then also what you were thinking of in your next video, which everyone can check out on your YouTube page, Downtown Sports.
What did I say in my last video? I've been making a lot of videos the last little while. Everything's just sort of a blur the last little bit.
So you were talking a little bit more about Jacob Chychrun. And then you brought up Josh Manson, and there was another guy. Was it Damon Severson?
Yeah. So basically over the last week or so, like Chris Johnston was on Insider Trading on TSN, and he mentioned that the Leafs would prefer to trade for players with term as opposed to just a straight rental. And then he cited all the rental players that they acquired at the deadline last year. I kind of viewed that as a personal attack, but whatever, you know, all the draft picks aside, it's not that big of a deal. The Leafs have a lot of prospects, 15 picks the last 2 years. They sign a lot of undrafted guys. It's okay. But at the same time, of course, I would want them to trade for players with term. But you would need to consider next year's cap situation when doing so. And to acquire anyone that's making even just $2 million or 3 or 4, especially, or 5, oh my God, would be almost impossible for this team next year, when you're considering that, the cap may go up by $1 million. Kessel's $1.2 million in retained salary. Probably it does come off.
Could get rid of Mrazek. Like there's
you
things
could,
like that.
There are things that you could do, but you would need to go full like NHL 22 and basically trade everyone outside of the core 4 guys that carries any sort of money beyond this season.
When everyone knows we don't have leverage. You have
Right,
no leverage
right.
because they know
Like,
you have to get rid of them. You know, it's like
right,
the
exactly.
Simmons in the 76ers. Yeah.
And well, like the Vegas Golden Knights and Marc-Andre Fleury and Nate
Yeah.
Schmidt the last couple of years, they got absolutely nothing for both of those guys. And Nate Schmidt and Marc-Andre Fleury are having pretty decent seasons for their respective teams.
Hoffman and Carlson, another one. They know everyone
Right,
knew they had to trade him, right? Yeah.
exactly. And then you're really just looking at all the players out the door, the players that are coming in, all the draft picks and prospects that are going out the door as well. And it's like, is the team or organization better, or is it just different right now after all of this turnover? Like this season, maybe they would be better, but in 3 years from now, are they better or are they just different? Like you can't make decisions in the now as much as you would maybe want them to, because you want them to win a cup. Now you also have to think about the next couple of seasons as well, and it's just it's a obviously I would trade a Stanley Cup this season for absolute misery. You know, for the next 10 or 15 years or so, I would trade Austin Matthews for a Stanley Cup. Honestly, I really don't care who's here when they win it. I just want them to win it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just taking that personal thing out of it. It's what are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
And that's win a Stanley Cup. But in getting back to the defenseman.
Before
right?
we get into the defenseman, I got one question for you that's going to lead into that.
Sure.
If the Maple Leafs, in your opinion, walk into the playoffs with the team they have right now, how do you feel about our chances? Are you mad at Dubas for not making any moves?
I'd be disappointed. I would be disappointed because this team is having the best season, because this team is on pace for the best season in franchise history right now. I would be disappointed that there weren't any reinforcements coming. You know, it's just that, and that's a testament to how good. I would be disappointed because of how good they are.
Yeah.
You know, yes, we're upset 5 out of 7 games that they blew a multi-goal lead in. Yes, we're upset that they needed to come back in back-to-back games against teams that they should have just beaten. But yeah, we're upset. Peter Mrazek hasn't been good or bad. I don't know, whatever you want to call it so far. Yeah, we're upset. Jack Campbell's slumping, but this team is still so good.
Yeah.
It is still so good. Austin Matthews with a hat trick last night. There's like 5 guys in the roster that are near a point per game, right? Morgan Riley is a point per game defenseman since signing the deal that he did. And that's in 30 plus games.
Yeah. And we have term for all of these guys.
Yeah, Michael Bunting makes $950K next year. There are so many good things to love about the Leafs right now.
Okay, so that segues into the defenseman talk, because you do want them to make a move. So let's go from there. What were you going to say?
Yes. So if it's not possible for them to make a move with a player with term, which isn't necessarily true, right? Because I said that it would be very difficult or almost impossible to acquire someone that's making a lot of money. If they can acquire someone that's not making a lot of money that's signed for an additional year, obviously that would be ideal. But there is one player that exists who we will talk about in a couple of minutes who would fit that description. But if you're looking at just rental players right now, the Maple Leafs are still in a position to where they would need to move money off of their roster in order to make any deals.
Yeah.
Right. And they could do it they could move money off of their roster without actually losing any guys who are playing in the lineup right now. Yeah. Right. They could free up some cap space by trading Nick Ritchie. And that would be more than enough to be able to go out there and get one guy who can sort of make a difference here, like a Josh Manson or Damon Severson, probably less likely because he's got another year left on that deal. But just looking at UFA defensemen, John Klingberg probably out of reach because Dallas wants a stupid price for him. It was quoted in an Athletic article that they would want a first-round pick, Robertson and
Amirov?
No, it was the first-round pick, Robertson and Irvinen. So it's like no deal for a rental player. And I guess that sort of leads into the conversation. It's like, okay, if you free up the cap space, right? Maybe you trade a Nick Ritchie, you're acquiring another defenseman. We already have 7 guys plus Dahlstrom, Biega, Rubens, who have played games for us this year. That's 10 guys, right? We can probably afford to move one of those guys out to maybe get a higher quality guy and go quality over quantity in that sense, and still have 10 NHL capable defensemen.
Yeah. Right.
So maybe you move out of Nick Ritchie, maybe you move out of Travis Dermott, maybe it's a Justin Hall. I don't know. Yeah. Whatever situation floats your boat or whatever is available to you within the next month and a half or so. But it's a conversation of how much do you want to spend, right? is that first round pick on the table? Are which prospects are on the table? Which guys aren't on the table? In my mind, okay, hold on. I want to ask you: are you comfortable with the Maple Leafs giving up a first round pick this year at the deadline?
It would really depend. I am comfortable with it. I can't say that I wouldn't be no matter who. Like if they went out and got someone that I really like or can definitely play a top two, but you get the luxury of having them in a top four role in the defenseman or even a top six forward, I'm okay with it. Because of how amazingly they draft and the extra money that they get to put towards scouting, which has reaped benefits with guys like Ty Voigt, with guys like Toby Niemela, with guys like Nicholas Robertson. They take chances on guys with high upside. I really like that approach, and a lot of teams are doing it. Maybe they'll catch on, but I like Rodion Amirov is an example of a first round pick who honestly, like he's been off and on, he's gotten hurt and everything. So granted, you can't like knock the guy, but
his value is at an all-time low right now.
And we've gotten better players in the second and third rounds within the last 3 years than the Rodion Amirovs, which is why I'm a little bit more comfortable giving up a first round pick, even though I know that you can go out and find a gem. But typically the first round is like established. These are the guys, these are Bob McKenzie's rankings. Like they're going to go pretty according to that. It's the later rounds where you take flyers of guys with high upside and that you've had the ability to scout more, but the Leafs have a lot more money to do so. So that's why I'm okay with them doing it. And I would actually rather that than them trading away a guy like Nicholas Robertson, a guy like Topi Niemela, a guy like Ronnie Hirvonen, a guy like Pontus Holmberg, a guy like Rodion Amirov. I would rather them trade a first round pick because these are all guys that in the Leafs window can come up on their entry levels. But you take it away.
Exactly. It's the mystery box versus the boat scenario, right? The mystery box could be a boat.
Yeah.
You already have those guys that are looking like they're going to be boats.
Yeah.
But
Matthew Nyes is another one.
Right. And the argument for trading the first round pick over a prospect is that the guys that you have in the system are further along in their development. They're going to get there quicker to be able to help you. But then you look at guys like Dawson Mercer in New Jersey, who we saw last night and who we will see again tonight. And he was a first round pick the same year that Rodion Amirov was. So, guys all jump into the NHL at different times and, there's different circumstances and stuff like that. But in my mind, if the first round pick is on the table, it's only on the table if I'm acquiring a defenseman with term that works. I'm willing to include one of those prospects as well, but it needs to be for the guy that I want.
So I don't know guy you want.
I don't necessarily know who that is, but if there's a defenseman, a right-handed defenseman with term left on his deal that's playing well right now, the team that he's playing on right now, maybe he's willing to retain some salary. I'm willing to include that first round pick. I'm willing to include some other prospects as well. It's not that I would rather pay more for the right guy than play a lot for just the plug.
It's like, here's a little analogy. It's like if you buy $10, $20 sunglasses or you buy Ray-Bans. They're all going to equal the same in the end, but one you're actually going to take care of and you're going to have for longer because it's higher quality. And you should typically, what all money experts say is to buy the good thing because you're going to take care of it longer instead of having to buy continuously not good things for lower prices.
Right. And then it's just acquiring players with term, acquiring rental players. A rental guy, maybe you have him for 20 games after the deadline. And if you're lucky, maybe another 20 in the playoffs, but realistically, maybe only another 10 or 15. And that's if you win a round.
Yeah.
So that's like 30 to 40 games of a guy. But if you're acquiring a guy with term, maybe he's, not as good, or maybe he's even better because you were able to find that perfect fit. And you get him for those 30 to 40 games this year, but another 82 next year and another potentially 20 in the playoffs the following season. So you're looking at that, and that's almost 140 to 150 games compared to 30 or 40.
Right.
And it's like, it's a no-brainer. You should always be trying to trade for guys with term at the deadline. So I don't know how much really.
Let's pause that for 1 second, because a lot of Leafs fans are saying nothing matters except the playoffs. We know the Leafs team with or without a rental are good enough to make it to the playoffs this year, next year, probably year after, and the year after that. So you're saying like you're getting an extra 140 games. Realistically, you're getting another playoffs with term. It doesn't matter about the next regular season because you're making the playoffs anyways. You might finish one place up. but in the end, you're getting them for 2 playoff series. That's the way that you kind of need to look at it a little bit more, which is like, do you want, if a lower price, to get a rental for this year, and then the next year you keep doing this lower price thing to get a rental for next year, because the playoffs are really the only thing that you're necessarily concerned with, right? So in the end, are you willing to pay more for a guy for 2 playoff series, the same guy, or play less for 2 different guys in 2 playoff series? And that's why you can justify either one in that way, right?
Right. And the margin for success on prospects is between 200 and 250 NHL games. So if you can trade your first round pick and you can get a guy who's going to give you 100 regular season games and maybe even 40 playoff games, you can weight those games differently. If you want to say the playoff games are worth 2 regular season games, there's your value in terms of giving up your first round pick. Obviously, you hope that your first round pick gives you more than 200 or 250 NHL games, but in the sense of, for your organization, if the player goes on to play more for another organization, it's just different, right?
Yeah.
And a guy that the Maple Leafs drafted in the first round, it's an awesome segue, guy that the Maple Leafs drafted in the first round a number of years ago, and that went on to play like another 800 games with several other teams who I would potentially be looking to add at the trade deadline, that makes under $1 million this year and next year, is a Stanley Cup champion, shoots right-handed, has a little bit of grit. Oh my God.
Brian Burke loves him.
Brian Burke loves him. He was pinned as the future captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but Luke Schenn is seriously. Luke Schenn is the guy that the Maple Leafs should seriously look at this trade deadline. And I hope that I know that you're from the Vancouver area, right?
Not from, live here now. I'm from Ontario, came here 6 months ago. Yeah.
Right. So hopefully the Vancouver Canucks don't bottle it and go on a run. Hopefully they quiet down with the Bruce, there it is, and they just fade quietly into the night and become sellers at this year's trade deadline, and they give us Luke Schenn back, because he's been able to play a very good defensive first role with Quinn Hughes for the majority of this year, playing almost 17 minutes a night, and he's been better. He makes all of his teammates without him are worse defensively, right? Maybe they're not as good offensively, because again, Luke Schenn's going to play in that defensive first role, but all of his teammates are worse defensively, including Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is better when paired with him. And at the same time, if you're looking at his numbers against the elite level competition, in terms of the shot attempts, he's controlling the majority of those against he's controlling the majority of the shot attempts against elite level competition, both per 60 and relative to his teammates in Vancouver. And he's doing it with heavy defensive zone starts.
Yeah. And the thing to remember too is, like, Leaf fans who still remember the Luke Schenn days, we all hated on him because he was so highly touted. It wasn't that he was bad. It was that we expected so much more out of him, right? And it was one of those things where then he went on to a few other teams, and some teams healthy scratched him for periods, even during the playoffs. And maybe he's seeing a resurgence in his career, but it reminds me a little bit of similarity to Zach Bogosian, because he could play with guys like Hedman in the playoffs, and he could play very well. And playing with a guy like Hughes is going to get caught in the rush a lot. It's like Riley and Ron Hainsey. You're going to need the guy who's going to stay back by their own red line.
I'm glad that you went there, because maybe Luke Schenn is not a defense partner for Jake Muzzin, but you see what he's able to do with that offensive-minded defenseman in Quinn Hughes. Could he be a defense partner for Morgan Riley, and that frees up TJ Brody to play next to Jake Muzzin? Would that be something that some people would be interested in? I mean, okay, ignoring the name, forget the name.
Yeah.
Forget the face, forget the history. If I just told you that there was a right-handed defenseman who was signed for this year and next year, under $1 million, got really good defensive results, can throw some hits, drop the gloves, has won a Stanley Cup, you would absolutely be chomping at the bit. So don't come at us for the name.
And I mean, those were the years of the Jeff Fingers and the Dion Phaneufs and I don't hate on Dion Phaneuf, but like I'm just including like some of the guys that we had.
Jason Blake led the team in scoring.
Yeah, like what are you supposed to do? Like I never really disliked Luke Schenn. That would be someone that I definitely could
could get behind because of the cap hit helps, especially too. What's his term?
He signed for this year and next year at $850K.
Amazing. And like, what if you could somehow finagle a JT Miller and a Luke Schenn in the same deal? You know, you get your top 6 guy, you get your Luke Schenn. I mean, if the Canucks drop off, maybe Boudreau really likes JT Miller, which was maybe not the case of the Green Miller era. So that might have fallen off a little bit. But something like that, hey, I could definitely get behind that. You get 2 and 1.
See, and the thing is that Luke Schenn, you know, he's found a home in Vancouver. I believe he's from BC.
I think so.
But at the same time, you know, he found his way through Tampa Bay, played really well up there, went to the Canucks. He's found a home there. I don't know if, like, Vancouver, obviously they're in a position right now where they want to be able to get the most out of their young players. They found something that works with Quinn Hughes. Just saying, you know, the other side of things, they may not want to move a Luke Schenn.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they're trying to retool, if they're trying to rebuild a little bit, it's new management, they may view things a little bit differently. It would definitely be someone that
is this a rumor or is this something that you want?
This is something that I want. And just looking at Vancouver's team and seeing who's available, and they've kind of let it be known that maybe a guy like Connor Garland is available. JT Miller's been in trade rumors all season long. Brock Besser's an RFA. So there's just a lot of uncertainty with the team right now.
Yeah.
So it's fair game to take a look at their roster and say, okay, who would I want from this roster, and see who's available. But you know, Luke Schenn is not the guy that I would want to pay a first round pick for. But
no, and I don't think you could possibly ask for that.
No. But maybe if you're paying a first round pick and you're paying a top prospect for a guy like JT Miller or another guy on that roster, maybe you're getting some retained salary somewhere or something like that. You know, the Vancouver Canucks are really trying to maximize their assets. You know, Kyle Dubas is not really a huge fan of 1-for-1 deals. He really likes the package deals. He really likes to throw in, saying like, okay, I'll make a compromise and I'll give you the first round pick and a top prospect, but I want this as well.
Yeah.
And then you could keep building and building. And that's how you get undervalued assets. And maybe
Luke Schenn is just the throw in the deal. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. Maybe he is just the add-on in that scenario where it's a massive package for a couple of players. You know, looking at their roster, JT Miller would cost a lot, and I don't really know if there's anyone else who's available for, who's available right now that I would necessarily want.
Except for Halak.
Yeah, Halak is a guy, but I'd only be acquiring him if I was trading out Mrazek. Peter Mrazek. Yeah. You know, if he starts playing well, there's no point in moving him. But Luke Schenn, definitely a name that I would be interested in.
We'll make it the title of this video. How about that? That'll really draw some eyes.
At least throw him in the thumbnail. At least throw him in the thumbnail.
So I got 2 guys that I wanted your opinion on. We have some commenters who sometimes like throw names on. I know on your videos too. So the first one is Brandon Haggle. What are your thoughts on Brandon Haggle on the Blackhawks?
Without looking
at his advance.
Totally blind here. I talked about Brandon Haggle, I believe, a couple of not the last time that I was on, but the time before that. But he's a guy who's played with Patrick Kane and even Alex DeBrincat. And it's like, what does a guy like Brandon Haggle have any business doing playing with 2 guys like that? Okay, this is stupid. There's nothing on my
how long
screen.
you're going to commit to that.
There's nothing on my screen right now, but he's able to be a very effective third component of a line.
Like a
and if you're like a Bunting, like a Hyman, like a Kerfoot, a Mikheyev, you know, and you see the model in Toronto, you know, they want to go top heavy on those 2 lines with duos and stuff like that. And it's just about finding a third guy that works. And they definitely have found a third guy that works in Michael Bunting with Matthews and Marner. If they can find one for Tavares and Nylander, I mean, it's no slight on Kerfoot. He's having an absolute banger of a season. He was integral on that 2-on-1 go-ahead goal in the third period on the penalty kill.
What was that guy doing? What the hell?
Alex, whoever that defender was, he absolutely baited him and stole his lunch money on that play.
Yeah, I don't think it was a defender though, because they were on the power play, so it would have been a 4th forward.
Maybe it was a forward there, but whoever it was, he absolutely baited him and stole his lunch money.
Yeah.
Incredible sell job, because we all knew Kerfoot, the playmaker, was going to be passing that puck. But he's on pace for a career season as well. So
yeah,
maybe Kerfoot is that third guy on that line that just works.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. They have some backup options, Neely and Mikheyev as well. That fourth line has been a point of contention. But putting Pierre Engvall down there on that fourth line has allowed Jason Spezza and Wayne Simmons to feed off of that transition game that Engvall does have and his speed, and it's made them more effective again. I don't know, man. I really like the forward group. A guy like Brandon Haggle, he is good, don't get me wrong. It's just that if I'm acquiring someone for the forward group, I think we have enough of those glue guys.
Yeah.
I think we have enough of those glue guys. If you're acquiring another forward, I want it to be a big name. This really should be just a trade deadline where the Maple Leafs prioritize quality over quantity.
Yeah. And I brought up last podcast, like Nicholas Robertson just got back. And granted, you probably want to give him the year in the AHL to get his health under him, but he's an option that if you want some speed on that fourth line, Nicholas Robertson is the kind of guy that could do amazing. If Josh Hosang goes out to the Olympics and has an amazing season, he's another guy that you could bring up. So that's why, Richard, I'm shouting out again, brother. You keep up bringing a Mason Appleton on both of our videos. I don't know if you've seen it too downtown.
Richard has been a longtime subscriber and commenter on my videos since I had under 1,000 subscribers. He's an absolute awesome guy. If he's listening right now, always a pleasure to talk to. Yeah,
and I know you said that you're not going to comment Mason Appleton anymore, and we both, I'm sure you like Mason Appleton, but he's another guy in my opinion of like the glue guy. You could play Mason Appleton with Matthews and Marner and he'd be awesome, but we have Bunting, we have Kerfoot, we have Mikheyev, we have even an Engvall on the fourth line, and it's just like what you're saying, like it should be, if you're going to get someone for the forward group, which I don't necessarily even think you have to, because you have guys like Robertson, you have guys like Hosang, right. Brett Seeney's having an amazing season. Granted, he's probably not an NHL player, but he's having an amazing season.
He has played some NHL games with the Devils, coincidentally.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, he's like 14, 15, 16th forward kind of guy.
And we're going to have Nick Barden on the podcast on Friday, I believe, to talk to talk about some Marlies guys. Downtown, you're always welcome to come on and ask your questions as well, brother.
Nick is a good friend of mine going back to our Seneca journalism days.
Oh, no way.
He's an awesome beat reporter for the Toronto Marlies for the LeafsNation.com. He's just a great guy. Yeah. We've done so many projects together. We even won tickets to John Tavares' debut in Toronto together. He's an awesome guy. He's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to asking about guys that we talked about at the start of the season, like Gagolia. Like, what happened? Because you were so high on this guy. I remember on the first podcast, you were like, this guy is like, and the issues were with his work ethic. And then you just see him with like 5 points with the Marlies, and it's like, okay, well, we probably know what's going on here.
Yeah. If you have any Toronto Marlies questions, he would be the guy to ask.
Awesome. But yeah, the Mason Appleton just kind of strikes me as a guy that, like, yeah, you could be great. No one would be upset by it, but like there's bigger needs on this team, especially with us being a little bit cap strapped. Like if you could replace Nick Ritchie with Appleton somehow, awesome. No one's complaining.
Yeah.
But there's like the Joe Pavelskis of the world that you mentioned that I still love that deal. I love that deal if there's a way to do it.
Or even drawing from the Chicago Blackhawks. There are other guys on their team that I think would be a little bit better than Mason Appleton, like a guy like Dominic Kubalik, or that
Dylan Strome even.
There are lots of other names.
Does a certain part of you, like deep down, want Alex Nylander to be on the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I mean, yeah, it would be cool and stuff like that, but at the same time, no, not really.
No,
it would be cool, but no, not really.
I think we kind of just Sedin it a little bit. That's what I'm doing in my head, and it's like Alex Nylander is no Daniel or Henrik Sedin, but there's always that, like, maybe he could have a resurgence in his career if he played with Willie, and it showed how long Willie kind of took to become the absolute dominant force in the NHL.
There's always going to be that mindset that like I can fix the problem, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone has that positive mindset. So I'm definitely not going to shoot that down, because it's better to have the positive mindset than it is to have the negative one.
And I'm an LA Rams fan, and we've taken every single reclamation project in the NFL and made them into a Super Bowl team. So maybe I have some bias there. Okay, so let's do a quick pregame for tonight's game against the New Jersey Devils. You said that Peter Mrazek will be starting, which is good to see. It'll be good to see him in that role. And hopefully we can have a better start to our 10 minutes. Talking about like what you said at the start about like, should we be mad at this team for giving up so many goals at the start? And like, granted, these are things that we need to clean up, but it's also showing that like, if we're in a playoff game and we're down 4-1, 4-2, 3-1, we're never counting this team out. And these are the type of games that it takes in a regular season. I would almost rather have these games where it teaches things like resilience. It teaches things like, okay, we need to do this system in the third period in order to get goals. We need to do like a 2-1-2 or like a 3-1, like different systems that we can actually put into place at practice, which is similar to what Babcock did defensively. And I think we all remember that segment of the season. That was when Nazem Kadri was still on the team, where games were 1-0, and it was like watching the 1999 New Jersey Devils play. And it was just like,
dump and chase.
But we were winning. And that was like things that guys need to know, those systems for if you go against, similar to Montreal Canadiens, how they beat us. They beat us by implementing a system that was boring, that was dump and chase, that was waiting for us to make a mistake. Babcock tried to instill it. Not a fan of the guy, but he tried to instill it in those years. And I think it's good that we're kind of like giving up these leads and then coming back and things like that, because it's going to teach different styles of play that you're going to need in the playoffs. Thoughts?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's even the thing to go back on the balanced lineup approach versus going with the lines that we've known for the majority of this year. It's just a different look, right? The more line combinations that you have, the more styles of play that you have that can work, the more you're going to be able to switch things up on the fly and disrupt the rhythm of the game when maybe things aren't going your way. You know, it's like that conversation that we've had, you know, on the power play, just two guys just switching spots on the power play can throw off an entire penalty kill. Well, if you switch the entire lineup up, that's definitely going to throw a wrench in what the other team is doing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're changing the way that a line is playing mid-game, defenders are going to have a really hard time adjusting to that. They already have a difficult time defending the Leafs as it is, but if you give them multiple different looks and stuff like that to, you know, have to study up on, you're going to cross them up. And that's been another thing where the Leafs have shown their hand all season long, what they're going to be doing at even strength, what they're going to be doing on the power play. Mm-hmm. And then come the playoffs, the team that they're playing has this massive sample size to be able to study and look at, where it's just one thing that they need to focus on shutting down.
Yeah.
So to have more options and just be able to play more different ways, go for it. It can't hurt, especially games in January, where the Leafs, there is no danger of them missing the playoffs. Like, it's in terms of the standing, it's like, I think Boston is the second wild card team, and then the Red Wings are the team after them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's just, there's no shot that they're going to not make the playoffs. And like we said, either way, first, second, third in the Atlantic, or those two wildcard spots, they're going to draw an equally challenging team. Yeah. Obviously, you can rank them in preference. You know, I would much prefer to play the New York Rangers than I would the Florida Panthers, because you're really just worrying about Igor Shesterkin and a couple of good players rather than Sergei Bobrovsky and just a band of monsters.
Yeah,
you know. But the Leafs definitely do still stack up well against all those other teams. They have a lot of games in hand, and if you're looking at the points percentage, the Leafs are ahead of the Lightning in the standings right now. The Lightning have dealt with their fair share of injuries, but so have the Leafs. So has every team.
Yeah. And the Lightning are the same team that was only one goal from beating the New York Islanders last year, and they've lost Yanni Gourde, and they've lost the entire third line. That made them so dominant. Like, they're not as scary as people say they are. And that's why I did see something on Twitter where someone was like, do you really believe that Leafs can beat Tampa and then beat Florida and then beat Carolina? And it's like, why are we fans if we don't believe that? And I objectively think that the Toronto Maple Leafs could very well be the best team in the NHL.
But also, why are we trying to take on all of those teams at once, right? It's one thing at a time, and a lot of circumstantial things come to play, right?
Yeah.
You know, John Tavares goes out in game 1 against the Canadiens. All right, now that's a different series for Montreal, and I'm feeling not so good about things. You know, it is what it is. The Leafs still should have won that series even without Tavares, but at the same time, it changes the dynamic of things. Things always happen on the fly that change things. Jake Muzzin could get injured again. You know, it's just you never know. And of course, we're going back to that negative side, but there's not really anything to be too upset about right now. Like, there are things to be upset about. Obviously, you can nitpick over stuff, but overall, I don't think that there's really that much to worry about. The Leafs are, if we sort the entire NHL standings by points percentage, are 4th in the NHL.
Yeah, and I think 1 or 2 power play are shorthanded is in the top 5. Like, things are working for these guys, and Jack Campbell isn't an 890 save percentage goalie. He granted probably isn't a 940 save percentage goalie, but he's somewhere in the middle, and that's somewhere in the middle. They're still winning with him being an 890 save percentage goalie right now. It's crazy to think of. Granted, we're not playing the absolute best teams recently, and it'll be interesting once we start to face the Floridas and the Bostons and the Tampas, and weird schedule that we haven't. But that will be the true test. We also, everyone needs to remember, we have 3 of the worst teams in the NHL in the division, and we played them all once. We still have a few games to go against the Buffaloes. We still have a few games to go against Montreal's and Ottawa's. Yeah. You know, like,
we also haven't played Florida at all so far this year. We only played them 3 times this year, which I found a little bit weird when looking at this. Yeah, well,
it's weird, but
it's all going to be coming down. Yeah, it's all going to be coming down the stretch.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
lots of games to look forward to, lots of pre-games and post-games by us. And I'm sure Downtown's going to want to come on whenever they're getting absolutely destroyed, so he can cry with us.
just like we can find faults in the Leafs, we can find faults on those other teams as well.
Yeah, I still don't trust Florida's goaltending long term.
No, I don't trust their keeper. I don't trust Frederik Andersen in the playoffs. We've watched him. We've watched him the last couple of seasons. You know, a couple of playoffs he was good. A couple of playoffs he was really bad. And the Colorado Avalanche also have that bug where they can't get out of the second round. So they're the Leafs, but just one step ahead of them.
One step ahead. Yeah.
You know,
and Nazem Kadri still has that problem where he can't play in a second round. But, so let's go over quickly the New Jersey Devils lines. Yegor Sharangovich, love that. Never heard of him before today. Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, Pavel Zacha with Nico Hischier, and Jimmy Vesey, beloved Leaf. And then Andreas Johnson, who actually was a beloved Leaf.
Dawson scored in last game.
Yeah, and a nice goal too. And I think that's his 11th of the season, matching his jersey number. Dawson Mercer and Thomas Tatar. Thomas Tatar, known overpaid forward consistently through his career. Yanni Kuokkanen, probably butchered that. Jesper Boquist and Nathan Bastian. And we also have to remember that they have Miles Wood, Dougie Hamilton, and Michael McLeod on IR with Jonathan Bernier and Mackenzie Blackwood on IR. Hence why I said they have John Gillies and Akira Schmid. And I don't know who's going for them tonight. I'm assuming it's the opposite, which I think last night was Schmid.
Yes.
So Gillies will be in net, very likely for them. And then their defense is Jonas Siegenthaler, Damon Severson, Ryan Graves, PK Subban, Ty Smith, and Colton White. So their record reflects their team.
It does, but the game plan should be with Schmid in net last night and John Gillies in net tonight. Should just be to get on them and get on them early, right? Just keep throwing shots towards the net because those guys are the third and fourth stringers, right?
Yeah. And let's also practice, as we were just saying, as we're probably definitely not meaning to practice coming back in games. Let's practice holding a 3-1 lead tonight. Can we do that, Leafs? Can we get a 3-1 lead and hold it?
November was full of just back to back to back to back, complete 60-minute efforts where we just felt so confident and so about this team and what they were doing. Can we get a 60-minute effort tonight?
Yeah,
we get a 6. Just go up 3-0 on the first period and just shut it down the rest of the way. Maybe allow, just a seeing eye goal or something like that, like a 3-1 win. You go up early and just shut it down the rest of the way in terms of the underlying numbers. That'd be really nice. Just get a nice and relaxing game.
So what we do is we make some predictions that never come right. Although I did say Ilya Mikheyev would score, and I nailed that one. What's your prediction for tonight's game? And if you want to say that Jack Campbell gets the S word, Mrazek gets the S word, you have to say 3-1. You can't say the 0 anywhere in there. So what's your prediction for tonight?
After having a couple of games where he hasn't really been noticed, I think William Nylander bounces back tonight. It was sort of the thing with the balanced lineup where he was playing with David Kampf and Alex Kerfoot, kind of getting a little bit of the short end of the stick there, but also Sheldon Keefe saying that he trusts him to be able to carry a line all on his own. It's been tough for him in the last couple of games. Hasn't necessarily played bad, just hasn't necessarily contributed offensively. So I'm looking for William Nylander to put up not 1, but 2 goals tonight against the New Jersey Devils. And I did hit a surgical 6 and a 4-leg the other night. So I'm not saying I drop any money on that. Definitely don't do that. I'm not responsible for anything like that. But William Nylander to score 2 tonight for me.
Nice. And what's the score? We've never gotten to score right.
3-1 Leafs. 3-1 Leafs.
Okay. 3-1 or 3-1?
3-1.
Okay.
I'll let you decide which one I said.
Okay. Leaving some room for error. Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess that it's gonna be a 5-2 game, Leafs. And I can't go with the Nylander take, but I think Marner's gonna stretch his goal streak to 7. And I think we're gonna get a goal from a defenseman that we don't very often. I think that TJ Brody is gonna get one tonight. I just have a feeling because I love TJ Brody, and I just want to put it into the universe that guy is going to go get another one. I think that'll be like 2nd of the season. So that's my 2. One's a bold prediction. One is just Mitch Marner scores another goal, which he has been just doing.
if I can add one onto mine, I think Rasmus Sandin absolutely cranks one from the blue line tonight on the power play.
Nice. Okay.
Just because that would be so much fun.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny. Last podcast we had Mark was like, I think that was his first goal. And I was like, man, we watched him score against Montreal together. We hugged. I embraced you. Like, how can you forget that? That was the good days. And then it all went downhill from there. But well, after the Joe Thornton goal, but yeah, all went down from there. Thanks for coming on, man. We might see it tonight because we're going to have another post game that will be happening right after the game tonight. Probably a little shorter than this. Wow, we've been going for an hour. And yeah, everyone check out, if you haven't already, I'm sure you'll have, most of you probably come from Downtown's channel anyways. And come the playoffs, you're going to be joining us for some lives during intermission and post game. The road to 1,000 subscribers begins so that we can do that. So everyone, please like, subscribe, comment, tell us what you think of our takes. Tell us what you think of Luke Schenn. And I know you'll probably post a little something like that. So check out his video. It'll have like actual graphs on the page. And
I'll be going as deep as I possibly can on it.
Perfect. Yeah, you don't come to this channel for concrete stats. You come to this channel to just hear random opinions about the Leafs. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll see you again maybe tonight.